If you think being right means you win an argument, you've never been in a relationship.
Interesting quote. How did the superb SNP MP John Nicolson quite rightly call out this expert about GBNews on the 10th of January 2023? Yeah, I know, it's old, but with the general election on, you know. But in this Culture, Media and Sports Committee meeting, John Nicolson has a bit of a problem with Bob Ward, Policy and Communications Director for Grantham Research Institute on climate change and the environment, and his appearances on GBBs.
I understand that you sometimes go on GB News, ghastly channel. I refuse to accept their invitations because it doesn't seem to me to be journalism. But often very uninformed opinion. Is it wrong not to go on the channel? You must think it's right, presumably, if you go on the channel to try and tackle some of the disinformation. Isn't there a danger? The counter-argument is, of course, that you give it credibility by appearing.
That argument certainly put to me many times. GB News and Talk TV are relatively new entrants in the broadcast arena, and they're reaching a constituency, a specific constituency, that they don't feel they're being served by Sky News and BBC and other constituencies.
Accuracy.
And it's a political viewpoint that they're meeting, and those people feel they're a small group, but they're nevertheless a group that you can't ignore. The argument that if you go on there and you argue with climate change deniers, you confer credibility on those deniers, I don't accept, because those discussions go on regardless of whether experts go on or not. If the experts all decide that they're not going on, then all they get is one side of the argument. And often it's a cover for the fact that actually experts are generally pretty bad in public debate. They don't learn debating skills. They're not as skilled as politicians or lawyers because they don't get it in training. And they quite often go on with the attitude that being right means you win the argument. And I always make the point, if you think being right means you win an argument, you've never been in a relationship. It simply doesn't work that just giving the facts. You have to learn how to present an argument persuasively, and a lot of experts are not very good. So I go on GB News to argue with people who have a particular viewpoint, they have a particular agenda, and I don't want them only hearing one side of the argument. I want them hearing an argument put on not just refutation, because largely that doesn't work, but to take on the premise behind the argument. So I went on GB News just after the last UN Climate Change Summit in November. There was a big discussion about payments to developing countries, and I took it to, well, if we don't help developing countries deal with the impacts of climate change, the flow of displaced people in the form of refugees and asylum seekers is going to grow, and that is something that constituency does care about. So it means addressing their concerns and dealing head on with it, with the concerns that they have. And that's what's required, I think, because if you ignore that constituency, misinformation, disinformation takes hold, they end up voting in ways that are misinformed. And I think we've seen plenty of examples of what happens when you don't do that.
Interesting to use their racism to persuade them to pay attention to climate change.
I wouldn't call it racism, I just say take their concerns and address them seriously.
Not too sure Bob Ward's right there. When he said that a number of people have had arguments with him about this, maybe these people are more right than you. Also, when he talked about a certain constituency feeling that they're not being best served by Sky News and BBC, kind of kills his own argument for me in a little bit, because they're not going to listen to accuracy then, are they? So what makes Bob think they're going to listen to the facts when it doesn't suit their political viewpoint? But what do you guys think? Let me know down below, and I shall bid you farewell and take care, my friends.